Hello, hello, hello. Assalamu alaikum. Ji ayanu, pakhair ragale, ni hao, chunashumme, washmale, ohaya gazaimas, guten morgen, hola, bonjour, privyet, kaifahal, and a very amazing khush amadi to everybody who's tuned into PTV1 and are watching well this morning alongside the one and only Shazad Khan and the very pretty Mariam Shazad. Hello, Mariam. How are you? How do you feel at a New Year place today?
I am doing good. I hope you guys are doing well and you're ready to start your Wednesday morning with me and Shazad. I'm loving this set, Shazad. I love this look. I hope you guys like it too. Yeah?
Well, as a matter of fact, we are only here for one day. So, ladies and gentlemen, don't like it too much because, as a matter of fact, we are going to go back or revert to what our original settings were by tomorrow or day after tomorrow. But as a matter of fact, this is not what is important. What is important is the type of shows we do. So, ladies and gentlemen, today we have picked up on educational sector, and within education sector, we are not just going to talk about students, because most of the times what happens is that whenever we talk about education, we just think about our kids and all those kids who go to school. So that's not what we're doing. So this time actually we're going to talk about teachers and how important is their training. And then even if in terms of training, who do you think is actually going to train our teachers? Probably somebody else from outside the world, or our teachers by themselves to other teachers who've actually gone for training to some other countries, or people from other countries have actually fled in to train your teachers. I think this is very important. This is what we're going to talk about. We do not have top stories. But, in fact, Mariam, do you want to throw something in as well? Sorry, I'm used to it, so.
That's okay. I think, aren't we going to go for a public message?
I think we can do that. So,
and
ladies.
today Shazad is very pumped up and he's ready to talk. Like, I didn't let him talk yesterday, so he's all said that he is not going to let me talk today. So I'm going to give him a chance so that he can deliver the public message.
All right, so talking about a public service message, ladies and gentlemen, today the public service message is going to be a bit different. And that is that most of the times what happens is that, yesterday, since Mariam said that we need to encourage child play. So as a matter of fact, I think what we need to do most of the times is that, first of all, obviously we said that it is very important, it is pivotal for you, or for all those parents who are out there to spend time with their kids. But as a matter of fact, I think that there are times when kids, when they come back from school, they just don't speak anything, or they just don't say anything, or you feel that there's something wrong, but they can't speak up about all of those issues, whether what happened to them within those school hours, or whether they have ended up in a fight, or whether somebody was bullying them. So I think what is important to curtail their personality, and so that they turn out to be people as good as I am, or Mariam is, or our guests are. But as a matter of fact, I think what we need to do is that even if your kids are like small, they're young, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years old, you need to sit down with them and you need to have this ambience, or probably a sort of thing where you talk to them and they can talk about whatever concerns they have very freely with you. I think this is going to be the best relationship what a parent or a kid can actually have.
So I'm going to add something in it, that there should always be a good cop and a bad cop. So I'm always the bad cop and he's the good cop. So so I've always put in examples, like what I do with my daughter is, if she's scared of telling me, she would go and tell her father about something. Majorly she doesn't, so she would always come and tell me if someone is bugging her, because if someone is actually bullying her, and bullying is actually very wrong. I think we should educate our children that bullying is completely wrong, and I'm totally against it. But you should actually sit down with children and you should talk to them about whatever is disturbing them in their atmosphere in school. Yeah?
So yeah, most of the time it's just mothers bothering the kids. So please make sure that your kid tells
they're
you
not
if you're
bothering
a father.
the kids, they're polishing them.
All right, it's perfectly all right. We definitely agree to that, but on a lighter note. But now moving on with what our topic is, ladies and gentlemen. So as I earlier stated, that over here in Pakistan, do you want to come up with figures as well? Because your figures were very apt and very correct as well. So please make sure that you share all your figures so that I can actually link it up with the topic.
You carry on so that I'll borrow.
Okay. So ladies and gentlemen, in Pakistan, back in 2014, there was this
economic survey.
Yeah, there was this economic survey.
That noted that in 2014 till 2017, there has been a decline in 3% of literacy rate. And now that there has been a decline of 60% to 58%. So carry on.
Yeah, all right. So now what happens is, I think that there was a need for some teacher training programs too as well. Thank you very much to the United States of America and their government. They came up with a fully funded program where they're actually making sure that our teachers are getting that type of training, which was necessary. And then actually, as a matter of fact, I think the topic will revolve around whether these collaborations work or do not, whether they have an impact in real time or do not, because we have been joined by the alumni of the program too as well. So the program actually initiated in 2014, where 20 teachers were actually taken in and then they were trained, and then moving on in 2016, again, the same thing was happening. But now what happened was that it's almost 50 teachers total who actually attended the program, and out of those 50, 20 will be selected and will be sent to USA for further training as well. But as a matter of fact, what we need to learn, or what we perceive over here as students, is that, teachers, they're always well taught, they know what they're doing. But I think that we have been focusing on teacher training quite a lot recently as well, and it is very important. We'll definitely talk about this program, because I think that we have been joined by very apt guests, the people who actually run this program, and then people who have been running through this program too as well. So let's start the introduction. On my left-hand side, ladies and gentlemen, we have been joined by Director of Civic Initiative, University of Massachusetts, USA, Dr. Michael Hanahan. Hello, how are you?
I'm great.
Assalamu alaikum.
I'm all pumped up after hearing you guys talk.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Alongside Dr. Michael, we have been joined by somebody who is a program director, Instructional Leadership Institute for Pakistan Educators. This is where the program's running, and this is what the name of the program. And she's none other than Dr. Rebecca Woodland. Hello, how are you?
I'm great. Assalamu alaikum. I love to be here. It's wonderful.
Wa alaikum assalam. Thank you very much for joining us. And alongside Dr. Rebecca, we have been joined by Mrs. Fauzieh Merchant, who is the Alumni Instructional Leadership Institute for Pakistani Educators. And last but not the least, he's been on the show quite a lot of times. I really like this guy. He's full of energy too, early in the morning. So this is compliment coming back. All right, he's the Alumni Instructional Leadership Institute for Pakistani Educators. He's none other than Mr. Umar Qureshi. Hello, how are you? Good morning. Assalamu alaikum.
Good morning. Assalamu alaikum.
So first of all, thank you very much for joining us.
Yes,
I'm
thank
going to get the conversation started with Dr. Michael. Tell us about the program, first of all. How did it all initiated, and then it was state funded, and now you guys are finally deciding to take 20 teachers to USA and then train them and then send them back?
Well, we've worked in Pakistan for a while, mostly with students, Pakistani college students. We met people that were interested in teacher training, and we have very qualified people like Rebecca here to do that kind of thing. But I want to emphasize one issue, that we learn from your teachers as much as your teachers learn from us. It's an exchange. And you deal with different circumstances, your teachers do, and our teachers appreciate that and learn from them, and we share information. It's really a sharing program that attempts to develop like a common language, so then we can help each other as we go along.
Right.
All right, but further talking about this program as well, it initiated in 2014. So what happened to all of those teachers who actually got training in 2014 and then 2016, and how do you see its impacts?
Well, that might come out in further conversations, but I will say after the last 5-day workshop we had that Dr. Woodland ran, almost half of the previous teachers came back as mentors. Right. And they probably, at my estimate, have taught here, well over 5,000 or 6,000 teachers, and motivated them and made them feel like they're not alone.
Wow, that's just cool. So let's just move on to Dr. Rebecca over here. So how do you see this collaboration?
I see it as the most professionally rewarding experience of my life as a university professor. And I was thrilled back in 2014 when we came up with the idea to say, hey, how do we do this? How do we get teachers from Pakistan to the U.S. and how do we get teachers from the U.S. to Pakistan? So this isn't my first trip here. This is my second. I love being here, and we've just concluded the 5-day workshop with another 50 teachers, and it was just a wonderful experience.
Wow.
Wonderful.
Yeah, do you want to move on now? All right, so let me move on. So I'll just move on to Mrs. Fauzieh over here. Now, as a matter of fact, how did you got to know about this program? Because I think this is some pivotal information which needs to go out or to be shared with all those people who are out there. Because half of the time we just do not even get to know about such collaborations or such exchange programs, and then we miss out on opportunities. So how do we look out for these opportunities? Because so far the workshop's been done.
Right. So I went in 2014, which was the first cohort of the Instructional Leadership Program. And at the institute where I worked, the school, Kausar College for Women, we got an email, and the head suggested that I apply for it. And after that, in the following years, those people who went and those people who had applied in the first time, they spread the word, and through social media, through so many ways. Just have to keep your eyes and ears open and be in touch with other educators.
All right, let's see. I think Mr. Umar actually has to add something too as well. So do you want to share your experience?
So, like when I first went to this program in 2014 with Fauzieh, I again came to know through my school office, and but that was the first time when 20 teachers were going for this program, and it was a very, very, the criteria is very strict, and people have to be very, very good and passionate about it. So later, when we came back and the next batch was going, we used to spread out the word, and officially that is announced by Civic Initiative, and that is further announced by one of our colleagues who are the partner of the Civic Initiative and doing all the logistics and everything here. And yeah, it is spreading more. So 20 and then 20 and then now 50, and they are.
Okay, so now what I want to know is that, since you were one of those teachers who actually attended the 2014 and were a part of the 2014 cohort, so when it happened in 2016 again, and now when the workshop took place, what was your role?
Look, in 2014, when I went, I was not very much exposed to the American education system. I visited the schools, I learned a lot from Rebecca Woodland and the guys who were there. So when I came back, I started, and we all started actually working together. The biggest blessing of this program is that we got the same like-minded people.
Oh, thank you very much. You're talking about my program?
Yeah, I heard one like you. So we moved on to 2016, and this year it was extremely enriching, because we actually got to know about those people who are extremely in backward areas, like those are not developed, the facilities are not there, like Balochistan, Sindh, Turkey, and if you listen to their stories, you just get really depressed that what is happening. They're heartbreaking, and we feel really proud of this program, and we know that when those people who are in those backward areas, they will be exposed to such extensive programs, and they will learn the new methodologies and whatever the modern world is doing, they can bring more things here.
You asked, though, the question, one of the things that you asked was, well, what did you do this time? What did these wonderful people do in this time around? And I just want to make sure I say it because it was so powerful. We have 50 educators from all over Pakistan, from all regions and everywhere, which is wonderful. And then we have what we call the mentors, or the alumni that were all there. And multiple times during the workshop, the lead facilitators, I as the lead instructor and others, were able to, we stepped back and they led the program and took everyone through it. And the participants, of course, totally loved that. And then we learned from them and their instructions. So we couldn't have delivered such a comprehensive program without
I would add
our
one
friends.
thing, like doing the program by your own, when you are going through the program, is different when you are conducting the same program or part of the program. So yeah, we learned a lot from them, and then they stepped back during these 5 days workshop, and me and Fozia and rest of our alumni, we conducted a program. So it actually, it's a powerful in terms of networking with the people and staying in touch with them.
I think that's great, but I just want to move on to Dr. Michael once again, and I just want to move on to you because of the fact that you said that it's not just learning from one way, it's both ways, that the teachers in US learn from them, and then they learn from all those teachers who have actually been traveling in from US as well. But as a matter of fact, how do you foresee the benefits of such exchange programs as well?
People around the world have views of other parts of the world. So Pakistanis have views of the US, people in the US have views of Pakistan, and generally they're wrong. If they're not wrong, they're at least not complete. And when you learn about a person who shares a profession with you, so if you guys went and visited with some TV people in the US, you'd get some different perspectives on what their lives and their jobs are like. The same thing with teachers. We share certain things so we can recognize them.
Right.
But you also have certain differences, and that makes you think about how do you do your job. And if we don't all get out of our own way, to some extent, we're never going to learn. And in many ways, it's that similarity because we're in the same profession, but the differences that make us think differently about our jobs that make us better.
Exactly, I think that's wonderfully said.
So, in your opinion, what are the best practices of teaching methodology that can be imparted to the teachers?
Well, that would be a question for Dr. Woodland, not for me, I think.
Right.
Well, it certainly would be hard to summarize them, but I would say what we just spent the 5 days on were these 5 principles
Right.
of how people learn and what that means for teaching. You know, when we think about mechanical engineers or
Right.
doctors, there are principles of how you do medicine.
Yeah.
There are principles of how you do engineering, and there are principles of how you do teaching.
Right.
And that's what we spend our time on, those universal principles that are transnational, that no political boundary stops those things from
Right.
happening, and it binds us together.
So, given the situation that there has been a slight, political parties have, collided. So, has that affected the education program in any way?
I can't comment on our political situation.
No, but
really.
Because
has it
teachers are
affected-
apolitical anyway, so
Well,
it's perfectly
no,
all right.
actually, we want teachers to be apolitical and focus on the business of teaching
Yeah.
and learning. But I will say this: regardless of what's happening politically, the waters of politics, teachers are focused on trying to create conditions for all kids to learn.
Yeah.
And so,
Right.
if anything, it binds us even more together to go, okay, that's going on. And it is happening, and it always will. But we're together in this. And how do we do this?
Oh, that
We,
is
we haven't
lovely.
seen any, because of the current political situation, any changes in support for these educational programs, either on the ground among individuals or at the higher levels of
So
that
you-
is lovely.
even and I think what we need to do is we just need to keep our heads down and just keep on working in the direction we're working. And I
That's
think
how we're
this-
answering the
Yeah.
questions.
Yeah, and I think it's going to
Loving
be
it.
it's going to be in our favor too as well. But as a matter of fact, now let's just dig in a bit deeper into this
Okay.
program. So as Mr. Umar very rightfully mentioned, that teachers from all over Pakistan, even in rural areas, if they get selected, obviously, there's like this immense exposure.
Yes.
But then don't you think that for somebody who's actually going to be exposed to such an amazing piece of knowledge or information all of a sudden, which he might or she might have been missing on for the past decade or 2 decades, don't you think it'll make a bit more difficult for them to learn and then to adapt all of a sudden in 5 days workshop or probably the training?
Well, sometimes when teachers, and it happens to I think every teacher, if they're worth their salt in teaching and they love teaching, that when they get exposed to new information about how to do things, they say, oh my gosh, I should have been doing it that way. So I think that's true for all of
Yeah.
them, for everybody. But no, I think the reverse is true. I think it's when you're exposed to something that enables you to do what you do better, that you think you can make more of a difference. Then the individual teacher says, oh, I can try this out with my student. But part of the beauty of this program is our very large network
All right.
of educators across Pakistan and across the world. And so once you're in and we're doing this work, we're together.
Right.
And we use social media and we use all kinds of formats so even if there's somebody teaching in some very rural place with very few resources, he or she is not alone.
All right.
They can access us.
Yeah, I just want to move on to you, and you definitely want to add too as well. But what I wanted to ask was, so before 2014, what practices did you have or were you observing? And then how did it change your life, and how do you think that your teaching is better now?
Yeah. I had exposure to teaching methodologies, and I had been exposed to theories and things like that, and I thought I was an okay teacher.
All right.
But for the first time when I went to the US in 2014, it was a completely transformational experience for me. I have transformed as an educator, and I came back bursting with this desire to bring about change in my country. And my loyalty to my country has increased after that, after visiting the US and wanting to give back and bringing about a change in other teachers, in other classrooms across
I'm
the
sorry
country.
to bring this in, but I think that I have to do justice with my job too as well. But over here in Pakistan, we know, I'm not going to call it a stigma, but as a matter of fact, ever since when we were, nurtured by our parents, or while they were looking after us, they used to tell us that you have to be very respectful towards your teachers. They're your like spiritual parents and whatnot. So one way or another, I think that we actually, and it should be like that. I'm not against the status of the teacher, but I think that teachers are humans too. So don't you think that they kind of get into this idea quite a lot and then do not want to change themselves, because as a matter of fact, they are the spiritual parents of a teacher or of a student whom they're teaching. So how do we find ourselves very positive towards change?
I would like to add one thing.
Sure.
There are certain myths. I call it a myth.
Okay.
This spirituality and everything. Like you never might have heard about a surgeon related to some spirituality.
Right.
It's a profession.
yeah.
A lawyer is a professional. An engineer is a professional. unfortunately, in Pakistan, teaching was not taken as a profession.
All right.
So the people who couldn't do anything, they just joined this profession.
Right.
And that is the dilemma. So the problem is, I'm agreeing 100% with you that teachers are the humans and they need workshops, they need professional development similar as a surgeon needs, as an engineer needs, as a lawyer needs. So the thing is, if they are not exposed to the professional development, you cannot allow a surgeon to start brain surgery until he or she has the required qualification and trainings.
Yeah.
How we can allow teachers to step into the classrooms without appropriate trainings, and that our nation must understand. And the people who are entering in the private sector and they are hiring the teachers, like paying 5,000 rupees to a teacher and expecting a lot of things from a teacher. Obviously, a professional teacher will not get into the school on those wages. So the businessmen who are entering in the private sector, they must know this thing and understand this thing, that teachers need professional development. It's not a waste of money. It's investment in the professional capital, and your professional capital develops. And similarly, the government needs to think about it more. Teachers need a lot of support. We need legislation on education. We need a lot of reforms in education. It's not about a linear process. Education is not that step-by-step checklist. It's fluid. It's dealing with the humans. And obviously, that is why I'm going to second your point of view. Sure. It's not about spirituality, it's about the professionalism.
Right.
All right, and well, okay, I'm going to keep my remarks reserved too as well, but as a matter of fact, there's one thing which I want to tell everybody out there, and that is, for example, if you go back in the 18th century and if you see how the first ever car was made or built, so, we actually used to start the engine with, this thing which was actually right in front of the engine. And then I don't think that there were any aeroplanes in the 18th century or in the 17th century. I don't think that there were cell phones. We used to write letters, or the pigeons used to fly the letters to some other place. But now in 2017, we have cars where, they run on batteries. Then we have cell phones where we can just WhatsApp and Snapchat and whatnot. So, there has been quite a lot of advancements in technologies. But as a matter of fact, that the classroom, which looked like a classroom in 18th century or 17th century, still looks the same. What's the dilemma behind? I think this is what I want to talk about. Let's go for a short break. Don't go anywhere. Good morning. We're still full of energy. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. For everybody who just got tuned into PTV World, you watching World this morning alongside Mariam Shahzad and Shahzad Khan. Ladies and gentlemen, today we are talking about teacher training programs, and that we have got some very apt guests over here. We have been joined by Dr. Michael Hanahan, then we have been joined by Dr. Rebecca Woodland, then we have been joined by Mrs. Fauzi A. Merchant and Mr. Umair Qureshi. Last two of these names are actually the alumni of this program too as well. But before going towards the break, what I wanted to ask was that we have seen evolution, we have seen changes in each and every aspect of life, but we certainly haven't experienced change whenever we used to go to school or universities as well. We still have the same teaching methods. So do you think that we need to adopt new ones, or is it difficult for the teachers to adapt to the new ones as well? And I think this is a question for Dr. Michael. So let's get started with you.
Well, I can't address the specific questions of changes in the Pakistani educational system because I think that's up to our friends from Pakistan to really address that. I would only note that in the U.S., as well as in Pakistan, education is very political. And when I say political, I don't mean bad. Everybody hates politics, right? But I mean, we pay for education. So that's a resource allocation question that your government and your people have to address. And education is also political because it teaches our students the values the culture wants to perpetuate. And we all argue about what those values are. So there's certain big level arguments that we're not going to solve
Yeah.
here. But in terms of the techniques of education, given the resources that are available, and resources are, it's a very important
It is.
question.
Right.
You know, I think my colleagues are better able to answer
Yeah,
that question
I would
than
just
me.
jump in and say I agree with Mike. You know, what your educational system is your educational system for you to decide. But I will say some big principles for us in the United States that we're constantly grappling with have to do with equity. Is every kid able to access a classroom? Can every kid go to school? And we have near universal access to education, and it's a law. Every child has to be in school. And then when they're there, are they participating, and then do they get the outcomes that they need? But when you ask the question, well, what's the thing in the, you know, back in the 18th century, 17th century, and so forth, we've got a teacher lecturing on the board with the kids sitting in rows. Here's what we know for sure. Kids are not empty. Their brains are not empty.
Right.
Teaching is not about opening their brain and pouring things in it and shutting their brain and then testing them on it.
Exactly.
There's no learning happening with that. So the number one thing we can all do anywhere in the world as teachers is organize everything we do around figuring out what they already know.
Yeah.
Right.
What do you already know? And then put that in relation to what we want them to know and teach accordingly.
Oh, this is
Amazing.
perfect.
Mrs. Fazia.
Yeah, I would like to say that teachers in Pakistan are used to a very traditional system, although things have changed in other parts of the world. But in Pakistan, in majority of the classes, you do still see this picture that you depicted about the teacher at the front of the class, and maybe the whiteboard has come instead of a blackboard and a marker has come instead of a chalk, but that's the extent of the innovation. Apart from that, it doesn't matter wherever you are as a teacher, in whichever rural, remote area you are and you don't have resources. It's about how you view education, how you view students, how you view your students. You have to respect each and every child in your classroom and understand that they are a unique, different individual with a different learning style. And we can't adopt the same approach for all the children in our classroom. We have to understand things from their point of view and not have this teacher-centered approach. It has to be a student-centered approach where we are coming from this point of deep respect for each student in our class, a deep understanding of each student's learning ability, learning style, their profile, and then designing our lessons to cater to all of those students. So they're all learning.
I'm sorry to say that, I'm sorry to give that expression too as well, but this is what we've been hearing for the last 2 decades while I was studying, and this is what I used to hear from all my teachers very respectfully. But then how do you think that we're going to change? We talk about all of these things, but I haven't really seen any school offering applied courses or, you know, some sort of education system where it's just applied or basic knowledge, which you, okay, you know, you can do 2 + 2, let's go to the maths class, okay. You can probably play with the shovel quite a lot, let's go to a construction class. We do not have a setup of that sort. What we do is we put all the birds in one cage.
That
Without
is so
knowing whether
unfair.
anybody can fly at a latitude or altitude of like 1500 or 1400 or somebody at 1000, or even if there were kids, you know, back in my days who had problem or dyslexic or some issues, we just do not cater to them. How do you think that we will do with that?
I think I would add 2 things now.
Sure.
And there are 2 things. Number one, what we are doing and how we can transform it.
Yeah.
Right.
Look, Shazad, it takes time. Transformation is always a slow process.
Correct.
Singapore took 30 years to transform their education system.
Right.
South Korea took a lot of time. In USA, there's a big, long history of transformation, and they are still transforming. So once we do something, there are 3 sins in our education system.
Okay.
Number one is surface coverage.
Right.
We cover the content like we rush through it, and we just have to, you know, prepare the students for the exams.
Thank you for saying that.
The second thing is, if some schools are offering, you know, the new splash of activities and activities. So the second sin is the aimless activities that we normally talk about in our workshops
Right.
as well. The third biggest sin, which is actually hampering our education system, is over-testing. We are doing just testing and we are not teaching. For example, in last couple of days, we were discussing one example, and suppose I have a dog and I teach him how to whistle.
Right.
Yeah.
And you ask me, so your dog started whistling? I'll say, no, I just taught. He didn't learn it.
Right.
But I start testing my dog, and I started giving him feedback. And what kind of feedback I'm giving?
Right.
I'm calling my dog and I'm saying, you do hard work. So this is what we do with our education system. We just teach and teach and tell and tell and tell and assess and assess and assess. If you are living in isolation, fine. If you are living in reservation, fine. But if you are connected to the world and you want your people and kids to be connected with the world, you have to accept the change.
Right.
It takes time, it needs patience. I'm not talking about revolution. Revolution is bad, it is dangerous. In education, it's transformation.
Right.
You change the mindsets, you expose the people to the good practices, and those practices are brought back. Probably out of those 50, I'm just guessing, probably 5 teachers don't agree with that, though they have the certificate and everything, and they go back. But when they are staying connected to those people who are actually believing in the new practices, ultimate objective of education is not to benefit me, not to benefit Dr. Woodland, not to benefit anyone but the kid.
Exactly.
Right.
So the core idea is kid. Like you have kids, I have kids. We want the best to bring
Can
for
I
the
jump in?
kids.
I just what Umair is talking about so passionately, which I so appreciate, is teachers have to create conditions so that all kids can learn in the classroom, and that means you can't teach one way.
Yeah.
You're going to teach in ways that enable all the kids to personalize the learning, and there's ways to do that. But another really important point toward transformation, if things are going to change, is we have to create conditions for the teachers to learn
Right.
in an ongoing way and act as professionals. And professionals don't work in isolation. The definition of a profession is shared practices that people understand, and they work on them together, and they hold each other accountable. So one of the major approaches of the workshop, and in the United States, a major reform strategy, is changing conditions in schools for teachers working together.
Right.
You know, I have found in doing this a few times now and working with hundreds and hundreds of Pakistani teachers that oftentimes when we start the program, there's a level of competition between teachers.
Right.
They're all vying maybe for, do I love them? Do I appreciate them? And I'm saying, we love you all. Like, we're all in this together. And so work needs to be done on that, on how we work together.
I think there was a deep-rooted message for all our teachers too as well, who are actually training this, who are actually attending this training program. But very quickly, since we're running out of time, I obviously want to ask about the SUSI program as well, which is for students. But before that, so what's going to happen with all of these teachers, or the 20 teachers which are going to be selected, and then what needs to be done? Let's just end this, and then we can move on to the SUSI very quickly. Whoever wants to answer.
Well, with the 20 people that get selected, I want to emphasize the 50 people are part of our family.
Yeah.
You know, they're part of the You're Not Alone group. And we hope to continue with everyone. The 20 people that do get selected to come, they'll come to the U.S. for 5 weeks and engage in a similar program that our friends have engaged in.
Wow, that's
Right.
cool. And then come back and impart that knowledge with other teachers.
We
too
hope
as well?
so, and from what we've seen, they have.
Wow, that's just great. So let's just very quickly talk about the SUSI program, which is about the students, and you're teaching them the foreign policy of the United States of America.
They've come
too
since
as well?
2008 or 9, I don't remember,
All right.
because I'm old. But yeah, since 2008 or 2000, this is a huge program. We have hundreds of alumni, we see them all the time. It's really about public policy. What we really try to do is think about how are decisions made in the United States and how are decisions made in Pakistan. And because you think of the United States and you think that's what they think, but that's not true. It's a debate and an argument among groups. And the same thing with Pakistan. It's a debate and an argument among groups. So when they leave, we hope they understand how decisions get made badly or better. And the same thing we learn from them, from their cultures. And honestly, the third thing is they learn from each other because many of them have never met people from Pakistan.
Right.
You know, it's a big, diverse country, just like the United States is. And all of us live in our bubble.
Right.
And all of a sudden they're meeting people from Baluchistan or the Punjab or Sindh, and they've never met people like that. So we're basically learning about not what you do, but why do you do that?
And I think that's a part of learning too as well. Dr. Rebecca, how would you love to wrap it up for all those people who are out there? You can just talk to them.
I would like to wrap it up by saying, what have I learned? And when I've been driving around, I see on the sides of the mountain, faith, unity, discipline.
Yeah.
You know? And I think, we as teachers want to have faith, we want to have unity, and we want to have discipline for one another.
Wow, that's great. And the founder of Pakistan is our teacher till date too as well,
Yes.
and he'll be as well. This is
Fawzia.
Fawzia.
I'd just like to wrap up by saying all educators should get connected, shouldn't stay in isolation wherever you are, whether you're in Pakistan or anywhere else. Reach out, connect with others. Don't be alone in your classroom. When we talk about things, when we discuss educational practices, we all grow.
Amazing, Mr. Umar.
My message will be for the teachers that number one, education is not mechanical, it's an organic system, it is for humans. If a seed is not germinating, the problem is not with the system, the problem is with the greenhouse. The right climatic conditions can help any seed to germinate. So we need to provide the right climatic conditions, and that is not possible in isolation. I'll agree with Fawzia. It is only possible when we hold each other's hands together and we stay connected with the world and we keep on accepting the new things, the new ideas, because the waters that remain stagnant, they start stinking.
Yeah, Rolling Stones gathered no moles either as well. But thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Very sorry, it was lovely
Thank
to have
you so very much for joining
on
us.
this program, and then we definitely would love to see all of those teachers coming back from US, and then we'll ask them what did they learn and then how are they going to impart their knowledge or share it with other teachers as well. But as a matter of fact, ladies and gentlemen, I think what teachers in my perspective needs to do, because I'm a teacher for my daughter too, whether you take me as a teacher or not, but I think the idea over here is to actually come out of your bubbles and be inclusive. And we say that, very sorry that we need inclusive educational system where, somebody with, where kids with special needs can come in and normal kids can come in and then they can study together. I think this is the system which we need for our teachers too as well. We need to be inclusive, may them be from a very backward rural area or may them be from very urban area. I think we need to share experiences, and hands-on experience actually gives you more of teaching or learning than any other experience as well.
True.
Marie, do you want to say something?
Yeah, it's a very good program. I really loved it. I really loved it. A good learning for me, and I really like what Mr. Mayor said here, that we should all unite, and we should educate ourselves, and we should educate our students about it also. That stagnant water, and we should also follow what the world around us is doing, because as he rightly said, that stagnant water always stinks. We should be always.
All right, so ladies and gentlemen, do not forget to write to us on our Facebook fan page, which is with the name of
World This Morning.
on Twitter,
World This Morning without a G.
on Daily Motion and YouTube.
World This Morning.
And the fabulous repeat's going to be at
11:05 p.m.
Till the next time, look after yourselves. Remember us all in your prayers. Stay blessed and make sure that politics stays out of education. Good morning.